Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'm going to talk about logging in Python, so let's get into it. Now I know most of you just use standard print statements as your main debugging method. The problem with this is that as your program gets larger and larger, you'll just end up with a bunch of print statements scattered all over the place, making it very confusing and hard to actually understand what's going on. Now, replacing these print statements with log statements allows you to log useful information about your bugs all in one place, as well as setting different logging levels and other useful functionalities that we're going to explore in this video. And in the end, I'm also going to give you a concrete example of how you can implement this into your programs. Now, the first thing to do is to import logging. So logging is a built-in module. You don't have to install anything. You can just import it directly. And now let's get into the logging levels. Now, there are 5 different logging levels, starting at debug. And in here, I'm just going to pass in a string with the name of the logging level. Next up, we have info, and then info in here as well. Next is going to be, warning. And I'm going to pass in warning in there. Next up, we have error, like so error. And lastly, we have critical, so critical. And in there as well, critical, like that. So debug gives us useful information to diagnose problems, and info serves as a confirmation that everything is working correctly. So these two aren't exactly errors; they're just information about your code. And then warning is an indication that something unexpected happened, but the program can continue running. And an error indicates serious problems that keep your application from working properly, or a certain function of your application from working properly. And then critical is a serious error that doesn't let the application continue running at all. Now, the default logging level is warning. So by default, only the levels warning, error, and critical are logged onto your console. So if I run this code, you can see that only warning, error, and critical are logged in there. Now, the message has the following format. First, the name of the error, in this case is critical, then the name of the logger. Now, I haven't created a logger object yet, so this just gets the root logger by default. That's why it says root. And then we have the message, which is this print statement I passed in here. Okay, so to change the default settings for my log statements, I'm going to write in here logging.basic config, like so. And in here, I can pass a variety of stuff. So first of all, I'm going to pass in level, and this is going to equal logging.debug in all caps. And this changes the default level for my logs. So it just stops logging just from the warning. Oh, I wrote this wrong. So level. Okay, apologize for that. Now, if I run this code, you see that this changes the default level for my log. So it stops just logging warning levels and above, and instead logs all the levels starting at debug. And for now, we've just been printing these log statements directly onto our console. But the point of logging is to have a more organized debugging method, and it's not going to help if you just have a bunch of log statements in the middle of the rest of your output. So you can actually log information to a logging file where you can store your log information over time and in just one place. So to do that, inside of my basic config, I'm going to add a parameter called file name, and this is going to equal the name of my file. The name of my file is going to be test underscore log.log. And now if I run this code, you can see that this is going to create a new file in my folder here called test underscore log.log. And the logs are going to be printed in here, so inside my file. But as you can see, this is not very well formatted, right? It just has the name of the level, then the name of the logger, and then the message. Now, you can actually change the format of your log statements to be more readable and to give you all kinds of information that you'd like. So back at my Python script, I'm going to add a format in here, and format. And this is actually going to be a paragraph, and let me just tab that in. And this is going to equal a formatting string. So I'm going to put %, then parenthesis, ASC time, and then an S, hyphen, %. Don't worry, I'm going to explain all of this in the end. So level name, S, and then hyphen, and then percent, parenthesis, and message. Okay, so this first parameter, or whatever you want to call it, prints a time. Okay, so this is going to print the time at which I run my code. This is going to print the logging level, and this is going to print the message. And let me just change this into error, like so. And in here, I'm going to put error occurred. And now if I run this and I open my file, you can see that this has a much better format. So this is going to print a time, the level name, and then the message. The problem is that you can see that the previous log statements that I had written in here are still in there. And I actually want this new log statement to overwrite the previous logs. So to do that, I'm going to back to my Python script. And inside of my basic configuration, I'm going to write file mode equals W, don't forget a comma. And this basically means that the file mode is going to be write mode. So now every time I run this code, the new log messages are going to override the old ones. So now if I do that and I open my file, you can see that the last log statement that I wrote is the only thing that's in there. So it's overwritten the previous log statements. Okay, so now let's get into that example that I promised you. So I have a class here, and this is basically a finances class. So I have a certain bank balance, in this case it's 100, and then I want to put a PIN. So the PIN is going to be chosen by the user. If that PIN is not equal to 1234, which is the PIN, it's going to print invalid PIN, and it's going to ask me to try again. And then I've created an instance of this class, and I've called the method authenticate on my instance. So now if I run this, let me do that again. If I run this, it's going to say, hello, welcome to the dollar bank. It's going to ask me to enter the PIN. If I write 1234, everything is going to work correctly. If I run that again and I write something other than 1234, it's going to print invalid PIN, and it's going to ask me to try again. Now, instead of this print statement that says invalid PIN, I can add a log statement. So to do that, I'm going to start by importing logging. So import logging. And now let's define our basic configuration. So logging dot basic config. And here I'm going to pass in a few arguments. So the level is going to equal, for example, logging dot info. So that's going to be the default level. And then the file is going to be, so file name is going to be my test log file, testlog.log. The file mode is going to be write mode. And then my format is going to be, so my formatting string is going to equal percent, and then ASC time, I want a time. I don't need a level name for now. I'm just going to put the message, so message. Okay, so now instead of this print statement, I'm going to add a logging statement. So I'm going to say logging dot, and this is going to be an error. And in here, I'm going to put invalid PIN. So now if I write this and I put a random number in here, it's going to ask me to try again. And it's not going to say invalid PIN, because what happened is it said invalid PIN in here. So it gave me the time like I asked for it, and invalid PIN, which is the message. So that's how you would use logging in a real world example. Of course, this program is very simple, but now you have at least an idea of how you can use this in your programs. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope it was easy to understand. I hope you learned something. If you did, if this was valuable to you, please like and subscribe to help support the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.